sum of everything I've listened to, and I'm a music fan. As I sit here in my studio on my computer, I've got all of my CD collection in iTunes, which is about 150 gigs of music, and there's more coming. And I listen to that music, and all the songs and records that are in that massive collection are part of my life, and I've listened to, and they've all influenced me. Everything from the West Coast pop art experimental band to Paul Horn to Soulfly to newer bands, As I Lay Dying, tons of King's X, everything by the Beatles, everything by the Beach Boys, all over the map. Sinatra, Anthony Newley, all kinds of stuff. Classical, Debussy, Ravel, you name it, in every genre. Not much country western though. But so I'm the sum of all that, and so as a result, I'm not snooty and stuck up about it's got to be this kind of music only, and I hate everything else. I like a lot of stuff. I really, truly like it. So when I play it, it reflects that. A lot of guys think right away what they hear by and instantly just want to shred over everything. It's not what I do. I like to shred. I like to play fast stuff, but I also like to play basic bass, great sing-along stuff, great chordal things, all over the map. But my basics are heavy metal and heavy rock. That's what most of my foundation of my playing is. So I guess that's the best way to describe it. But it's tainted with everything you could imagine. So for somebody that wanted to know about my playing, if a music fan could play, that's probably what I am. It's a long, long list of influences. I started out listening, I had older brothers and sisters, so they listened to music that I was too young to really get into because I didn't know any better. So I heard Everly Brothers, Jerry Lee Lewis, the precursors to rock. Then the Beatles came out. I was still a little young for that, but I saw what was going on. The Beatles were huge, and then as I got a little older, got in all the Beatles, Stones, Yardbirds. I was heavily into Yardbirds way early on. All three of the guitarists, Beck, Clapton, and Page. The whole psychedelic era when it came out, when it first started, and the Beatles did Sgt. Pepper, the first Vanilla Fudge record, and then things grew from there. I kind of followed along. That's why I'm glad. I'm an old man, but I'm glad I'm as old as I am, because I kind of followed along from the early days of rock and roll, even though I was a little young for it, because like I said, older brothers and sisters, and right up to the Beatles and Stones, and then in the Bowie and the psychedelic era, and before that Hendrix, and just everything that came along as the most popular music of the day. At one point or another I was into, right up until pretty much till the disco era, and then things started to split. A schism happened, and it used to be, rock, folk and blues and classical. Then all these things started to split up. It became like the balkanization of music. So even in spite of that, I still was into a lot of different things. But Sinatra, when I was young, I didn't like it because my mom liked it. I had to rebel against my mom. But later on, I became a huge Sinatra fan. All kinds of stuff. So as a fan, it's just almost too much to mention. There's so much stuff that I love. All over the map. Fusion, when Chick Corea, Return to Forever, Mahavishnu Orchestra, John McLaughlin, Dreams, Billy Cobham's first band, all that stuff was way into that when it first came out, because the first wave of it in the early 70s was amazing. I've been lucky to play with a lot of great players. Back in Buffalo, New York, my first band, Opus One, we had a horn band. Great musicians in that band. There were 11 of us. After that, I studied with Tallis. Great players. They're still back in Buffalo. I go do jams and reunions with them still. We have a great time. We can walk, right now we could walk into a club and do 3 hours of music without rehearsing at all. It's an amazing phenomenon. And then went on with David Lee Roth, of course with Steve Vai and Greg Bissonette, Brett Tuggle on keyboards. Left that, started Mr. Big, got lucky again with some great players. Actually, before Mr. Big, I was going to do a band with Steve Stevens, who's another spectacular guitar player. Didn't quite come together, but so I did Mr. Big. All the guys in Mr. Big, supreme talent. From that, Niacin with Dennis Chambers, who changed my life, the greatest drummer. He's Hendrix to me, only on drums. He's just such a big influence to me. John DeVello on keyboards, great stuff. So I've been real lucky to play with a lot of great, tremendous players. All of them have left their mark on me, and all of it positive. Some of the people that maybe emotionally or business-wise, whatever, we had some conflicts within the bands, it was still, in the end, it's all good because you all get something from it. It's all good. And even some of the people I've had some conflicts with, we've made some great music. You know, so in spite of it all came through. Staying with one group of people, you grow together. You get a coherent energy and a chemistry that works together. As a fan, I like to see bands stay together in the original lineup from beginning to end. That's, you know, any band I've ever been in where we had to change members, oh God, I hated it, because though, you know, it may have been for the better, it may actually get somebody in the band that works out better and less problems, stuff like that. As a fan, it's never the same, you know, no matter what it is. Anybody that's a real music fan out there says the same thing. Sometimes it'll be better for the band, you know. They'll end up having better success, you know. With Van Halen, they had great or more success. With Sammy Hagar, I don't know if they did or not. For me, it was never the same, though I wished them well with the new lineup with Genesis. Peter Gabriel left. My God, our lives were torn apart when that happened back in the 70s. Genesis solo, or Peter Gabriel solo stuff after that was great. I loved it. Genesis after that had the biggest success, but it was never The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway or Supper's Ready. You know, that for real fans, that was the great stuff. But you understand that stuff has to happen sometimes. Sometimes it just cannot continue on as it is for a lot of reasons. Sad to see, but it's gotta go on. And luckily, we have all that stuff on CD or vinyl or tape somewhere. So when you put it on, it's the moment again. So it's all preserved. One of the most unusual was Terry Bozzio. Unusual because as a bass player, I'm watching drummers, and I'm used to drummers doing basic drum things, which Terry does. He's brilliant at it. Terry can do anything. But Terry does an amazing thing in that he uses drums as a compositional tool. So he's not always playing basic, straight-up drums. He's using them as a broad range, wide dynamic instrument. So it's amazing for what he does. And for me as a bass player, I had to really adapt and adjust to play with him. So, and I wanted to play with him because I've just seen him do so many spectacular things. We did a record together, 9 short films. A pretty unusual record. But I get a lot of email about it to this day, and people really love the record. And it's a left turn for sure, but it was really inspirational to me. Learn by ear, play by ear. Still to this day, anything I learn, I got to learn it by ear. So when I get some wacky, crazy, psychotic fusion thing, and with the 3 bars and 17. I got to figure it out by ear. And it's funny because people always ask me for tablature for stuff that I play or play on. I have no idea. You know, I guess I do it by ear. Some of the Steve Vai stuff was a real challenge. Some of the Niacin stuff also was a real challenge because you got to do it and you got to play it, and you can only learn it by ear. It's kind of cool though because it really does. Musicians, I think, you know, in my humble opinion, and a little bit biased because it's about myself, but when you learn to play by ear, you really learn to listen and be able to respond right away. So when you're jamming and you listen to somebody else and they go somewhere, you don't need a roadmap. You know exactly how, you know, what they're doing just by ear. You can tell. And some musicians can do both, which is wonderful. But I can only learn by ear and only figure things out by what I hear in my head. I play guitar, which I mostly play baritone. This is a baritone guitar here. It's a baritone guitar is a regular guitar, only it's tuned down 5 frets or 1 string. So when you play an E chord, it's actually a B, in the key of B, but it's the same fingering and everything like that. And regular tuned guitars. I prefer 12 strings because they're so big, grandiose, and orchestral. I can play a little bit of a recorder, which is a wooden flute-like instrument used on a lot of Bach, Brandenburg concertos that use a recorder. I play a little bit of harmonica, a little bit of drums. I can actually get a tone out of any of the trumpet, French horn, embouchure instruments. And I can actually know where to put my fingers on sax and flute as well. I can fake my way a little bit on keyboards, but not much. Just the basic, most rudimentary things. And I did buy a kit on how to learn the bagpipes. So that's my next step. Outside of music, I'm a self-educator. I'm into language, learning as much as I can about English, words, definitions, a little bit of philosophy. I shoot a little bit, don't hunt much anymore. I like to fish, but I haven't had time to do it for a long, long time. I was very, very much into fishing when I was younger. But most of that has all kind of gone by the wayside, and really music is just about everything to me. Music and my cat, Spooky, who is not here right now. I don't see her. Normally she'll lay on my recording console because it's warm and readjust all the knobs, and I have to get back into the manual to put it back to square one again. There's not much I do outside of music. I'm a fan, but I'm also a player. Between those two things, that covers a lot of time. Oh, I answer email too. I think that's probably my biggest hobby, is answering email. I've been cut, hurt, bruised, hit, up there so sick I couldn't stand up. I had to sit down and play. I was playing one time and leaning down looking at my instrument, and a huge drool came out of my mouth. I didn't realize, because I was so into what I was doing, I wasn't paying attention. I looked up and everybody in the audience was watching like that, saw the whole thing, totally embarrassed. Played a whole set with my zipper down one time. And I never sneezed on stage. I never threw up on stage. I did actually have to pee on stage one time. Fortunately, the dressing room was right next to my side of the stage, and I had a long cord, and I went in there, and one of the crew guys held a bucket like that, and while I was playing, played the song, and he held, and I didn't. Good thing we didn't touch anything electrical and had a short or anything like that, because that would have been a really crazy thing. But I actually managed to have a pee while I was on stage. But there were many more, many wilder. Trust me, if you see me with a glass of red wine in a club somewhere, you probably can extract them from me.
What was the first record album you ever bought?
I think it was Blues Magoo's Psychedelic Lollipop, with a song called We Ain't Got Nothing Yet. And they also did Tobacco Road on it, which we covered on the Eat 'Em Smile record, oddly enough. The first bass and amp I ever actually owned was a Hagstrom bass. Little 3/4 size, horrible little thing. And then the first bass amp I had was a Gretsch Pro bass with a single 15. My first real bass, for real, was of course the P bass, which I still have, and a Fender Super Bassman, which is a 100-watt Bassman Fender amp head, and a 215 JBL cabinet. That was the real first one. First concert I ever saw was Jimi Hendrix. I remember smelling a funny smell. You know, it smelled like somebody's burning rope or something. Came in just as Soft Machine was the opening act. And they had a giant screen that went from ceiling to floor with these psychedelic shapes floating on it. We walked into this giant room, and it was the most overwhelming thing ever. And then Hendrix came out. Mind-blowing. Jimmy changed my life. I would have loved to play with Hendrix in that band. I thought Jimmy put together an incredible ensemble with the original Experience. Mitch Mitchell was a spectacular drummer and not really a rock drummer. He was more jazz influenced. So when he played rock, it was a whole different flavor. And that was an inspiration for a lot of things, that idea of Mitch Mitchell, a jazz guy playing rock. So when I would get influenced by classical music in the day, listening to, you know, some Bach or Beethoven or something, and then that night I'd go out and play at the Barrelhead in Buffalo, New York for a rock show with Tallis. That stuff would be in there, and it would be influenced, and I like the way a real disparate style would influence something completely different from it, and that's what Mitch Mitchell was. So in that band, that ensemble that Jimmy had, I thought it was just brilliant the way he played. And Noel Redding, of course, was a great bass player too, and but I always heard more. You know, I always thought I would like to see Hendrix do more interaction with the bass player. It would be kind of cool, because later on when Cream came out, Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton, they were weaving things together with Ginger Baker. I would have liked to see Hendrix play in a band more like that. He did a little bit with the band at Gypsy, but still the bass player was good though. It worked. Billy Cox, incredible bass player, laid an incredible foundation for Hendrix to play. But it would have been interesting to do an interplay with him as a bass player. So pull way back sometimes, move in, weave a spot in and out of what he's doing sometimes too. So I think it would have been the Jimi Hendrix Experience if I could have ever. sounds cliche, but you cannot deny the songwriting ability of the Beatles, Lennon and McCartney. I've been asked a couple times if there's any song that I ever wish I would have written. It's If I Fell by the Beatles. It's a perfect song to me. It's just amazing, brilliant chord changes and transitions and the emotion of it. Incredible. So a lot of great songwriters I was into. From Burt Bacharach, Hendrix, Dylan, Nilsson, all kinds of stuff. But the Beatles, if you had to pick one, it had to be the Beatles. They really changed the course of history. Between them and Dylan, they were the first guys that started really writing their own stuff. I have their first demo tape as a bootleg, and it's all copy tunes. 30 songs are all copy tunes. There isn't one original. Later on, as they grew into it, they started to write, and they really changed the course of history for where artists now write their stuff and then record it. Where before that, it wasn't that way. Elvis, Sinatra, before them, they were always doing other people's music. It's kind of interesting that the change occurred. Arguably, maybe someone else came before them, but they were the guys that were most known for the band that really began to write their own stuff. And Dylan as well. He was one of the guys that started that whole trend. To expand, to be a better player, a better person, and to have had maybe another 5, 10, 15 records out between now and then too, just to continue on. I'm always trying to improve.